Captain Axel Blackwell knew he'd made a critical error the moment his shuttle's warning systems blared to life. The Valerian warship materialized from the nebula's edge, its crystalline hull gleaming like a predator's teeth in the starlight. "Evasive maneuvers!" Axel shouted, his fingers flying across the controls. The small mercenary vessel banked hard, but the Valerian tractor beam had already locked on. His three-person crew scrambled to battle stations, but this wasn't a fight they could win. Dominic, his weapons specialist, swore colorfully. They weren't supposed to be in this sector. Intelligence screwed us. Intel is always sketchy when it comes to Valerian patrol patterns, Axel replied, trying to keep his voice steady. After 5 years running missions against the alien empire that threatened human expansion in the Orion Arm, he'd learned to expect the unexpected. But not this, not a royal flagship emerging exactly where their small vessel was performing reconnaissance. The hull groaned as the tractor beam pulled them toward the massive Valerian ship. "Prepare for boarding," Axel ordered, drawing his pulse pistol. "And if this goes sideways, you know the protocol. The mission data takes priority over our lives." Kira, his navigation officer, met his eyes with grim determination. "We knew the risks when we signed on with the coalition forces, Captain." Before Axel could respond, the ship rocked violently. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling as the Valorians initiated an override of their airlock. His heart hammered in his chest, but years of combat had taught him to channel fear into focus. The airlock hissed open, revealing 6 Valerian royal guards in their distinctive silver-blue armor. Their faceplates concealed their expressions, but their posture radiated lethal efficiency. Behind them stood a figure that made Axel's blood run cold, a Valerian royal, evident from the ornate sigils etched into her armor and the unique crest that adorned her head. Princess Thelia of the Valerian Empire stepped forward, her iridescent skin catching the emergency lights of the human vessel. Unlike her guards, she wore no faceplate, allowing Axel to see the alien beauty of her features, the silver irises that seemed to shift color like mercury, the delicate ridges that framed her face like a natural crown. "Captain Axel Blackwell," she said, her translator rendering her voice in perfect standard English. "Your reputation precedes you." Axel raised his weapon, knowing it was futile but unwilling to surrender without at least a show of defiance. "Can't say I've had the pleasure, Your Highness." A flicker of what might have been amusement crossed her alien features. With a gesture so swift he barely saw it, she activated a device on her wrist. His pistol grew scorching hot in his hand, forcing him to drop it. "The pleasure is all mine, Captain," she replied. "The human mercenary who has cost my father's forces 3 battlecruisers and countless soldiers. A strategic mind that has evaded our best commanders." She circled him slowly, appraising. "Yet here you are, caught like a Vrex in a snare. If you're going to execute me, get on with it," Axel growled, positioning himself between the princess and his crew. Princess Thelia tilted her head, the gesture oddly bird-like. "Execute you? That would be a waste." "No, Captain, you are far too valuable." Her eyes narrowed. "You will be coming with me." Dominic lunged forward suddenly, a hidden blade in his hand. Before he could take 3 steps, one of the guards fired a stun blast that sent him crumpling to the deck. Thelia didn't even flinch. "Your crew will be detained separately. You, however, will be my personal prisoner." Like hell, Axel snarled, tensing for a fight he knew he couldn't win. The princess moved with inhuman speed, pressing a small device against his neck. A cold sensation spread through his veins, and his limbs grew heavy. "You misunderstand, Captain," she said, her face the last thing he saw as his consciousness began to fade. "This is not a negotiation." As darkness claimed him, Axel's last thought was of the mission data hidden in his neural implant, information that could save thousands of human lives. Information he would die to protect. What he couldn't know was that his capture would set in motion events that would reshape the very conflict between their species, and that the alien princess watching him with such fascination would soon become much more than his captor. Axel awoke in a chamber unlike any prison cell he'd ever seen. Instead of the stark containment units typical of Valerian detention centers, he found himself in a spacious room with curved walls of polished stone that shimmered with embedded bioluminescent crystals. A large viewport revealed the swirling violet storms of Valoris Prime, the imperial homeworld he'd only seen in intelligence briefings. He tested his limbs, surprised to find himself unbound, though a quick inspection revealed a slim metallic band around his ankle. The door had no visible lock, typical Valerian design that relied on biometric signatures he couldn't hope to mimic. The sedative should have worn off completely by now, came Princess Thelia's voice as she entered through a doorway that materialized in the seamless wall. Your physiology processes toxins remarkably quickly. Axel stood, assuming a defensive stance. Where are my crew? Your companions are in standard detention, she replied, moving with the fluid grace characteristic of her species. Their treatment depends largely on your cooperation. And what exactly does cooperation entail, Your Highness? Axel couldn't keep the sarcasm from his tone. Thelia circled him slowly, silver eyes assessing. Information, naturally. But not the kind you fear. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared between them. I have no interest in military secrets, Captain. My interests lie elsewhere. The display showed Earth, not strategic locations or defenses, but cultural artifacts, art, literature, and historical sites. Axel's confusion must have shown on his face. Your species fascinates me, Thelia continued. So brief-lived yet so prolific in your creations. So divided yet capable of unity when threatened. She dismissed the hologram with a wave. The military intelligence my father seeks, I could extract from your neural implant if I wished. Axel tensed. Then why haven't you? Because data can be falsified. Experience cannot. She moved to a table where an array of objects Axel recognized from Earth were displayed. I want to understand the human perspective, not merely catalog your weaknesses. Over the next several days, their conversations fell into an unexpected pattern. Thelia questioned him about Earth customs, human emotions, the nuances of expressions and idioms her translators couldn't fully capture. In turn, Axel found himself asking about Valerian culture, their 3,000-year lifespan, their symbiotic relationship with technology, their complex caste system. On the fifth day, she brought him to a balcony overlooking the imperial city, its crystalline spires reaching toward the auroral sky. The ankle band remained, but otherwise, he moved freely in her presence. Your father knows you're keeping a high-value prisoner in your personal quarters? Axel asked, watching a formation of Valerian fighters patrol the horizon. My father, Thelia said with unexpected bitterness, concerns himself only with conquest. As long as I deliver useful intelligence, he cares little for my methods. And will you? Deliver intelligence? Her silver eyes met his. That depends on what I learn. Later that evening, as Axel examined the books Thelia had provided, actual physical books, a rarity even on Earth, she returned unexpectedly, her usual composed demeanor shattered. My father has ordered the bombardment of the human colony on Vesper 3, she said without preamble. 3 million civilians. He claims it will demonstrate Valerian resolve. Axel felt the blood drain from his face. When? 3 rotations from now. The fleet departs at dawn. She approached him, closer than she'd ever stood before. I have never questioned our expansion. Our right to claim territory. But this. She faltered. This is genocide, Axel finished for her. Something shifted in her expression, vulnerability, doubt, emotions he hadn't believed Valorians capable of experiencing. If someone were to warn your coalition forces, she said carefully. Axel studied her, looking for deception and finding only conflict. Why would you betray your own people? Perhaps, Thelia replied softly, I am beginning to wonder if there is more to being Valerian than conquest. Her fingers brushed against his, the first physical contact they'd shared. And perhaps you are helping me see alternatives I never considered possible. The warning reached Vesper 3. In the aftermath, rumors spread through the Valerian court about a security breach, but the Imperial investigation found no evidence of transmission from the palace. Only Axel and Thelia knew how they had bypassed the royal communications blackout, using a modified personal beacon from Thelia's private vessel. They'll suspect you eventually, Axel warned as they stood in her laboratory, surrounded by artifacts from a dozen worlds. 2 weeks had passed since the failed attack on Vesper 3, and the Valerian Emperor's rage was legendary throughout the palace. My father respects results, not methods, Thelia replied, though tension lined her features. As long as I continue my research on human behavior, he will not question my keeping you here. Research, Axel repeated with a wry smile. Is that what you call this? The distance between them had been shrinking day by day. What had begun as interrogation had evolved into genuine dialogue, then into something neither of them had names for in their respective languages. Thelia's silver eyes met his. I don't have the human vocabulary to define what this is. That night, she brought him to a hidden chamber deep within her quarters, a place where not even Imperial surveillance could reach. Here, among star charts and forbidden texts from conquered worlds, they spoke freely for the first time. Our species have been fighting for 3 generations, Thelia said, her iridescent skin catching the low light as she moved. My great-grandfather believed humans were merely another species to be subjugated or eliminated. My grandfather saw your potential as a servant race. My father. She paused. My father fears you. Fears us? The Valerian Empire outguns the human coalition 10-1. Not your weapons, she clarified. Your adaptability. Your unpredictability. Her fingers traced a pattern on an ancient map. What terrifies him most is that you cannot be calculated, cannot be reduced to logical patterns. You change too quickly. Axel moved closer, drawn to her like gravity. And what do you believe? I believe I was wrong about everything. She turned to him, determination hardening her features. And I believe my father has discovered your true identity. The Imperial Guard has been ordered to transfer you to military detention at dawn. Axel's blood ran cold. Execution? Interrogation first. Then public execution, to demoralize the human resistance. Her hand touched his face, the sensation alien yet achingly intimate. I cannot allow that to happen. What followed was not planned by either of them. The first touch of her lips against his was exploratory, uncertain. The second was anything but. The anatomical differences between their species seemed insignificant in the moment as clothing was discarded and barriers, both physical and metaphorical, fell away. They came together in a tangle of limbs and whispered confessions, her skin luminescent in the darkness, his hands mapping the unfamiliar ridges and planes of her body. It was beautiful and strange and desperate, knowing that dawn might separate them forever. Afterward, lying in each other's arms, Thelia traced the scars on his chest, testament to his years of fighting her people. I never understood humans' willingness to sacrifice for each other, she murmured. Valorians value collective achievement, but individual sacrifice is considered inefficient. Maybe that's what makes us dangerous, Axel replied softly. We're willing to die for what we believe in. Or who we care about. Her expression changed, resolve crystallizing. The guard rotation changes at third bell. My personal shuttle requires no authorization. You'll find your crew in detention block 7. She pressed something into his palm, an access crystal. This will open their cells. Axel closed his fingers around the crystal, then pulled her close again. "Come with me." Pain flashed across her features. "I cannot. Not yet. If I disappear, my father will know I helped you. He would burn worlds to punish such betrayal. Then I'll come back for you," he promised. "No," she whispered fiercely. "Return to your people. Prepare them. My father plans a final offensive against your core worlds. I will do what I can from within, but you must warn the coalition." Their final kiss tasted of urgency and unspoken emotion. When they parted, something fundamental had changed between them, and perhaps, between their species. Dawn approached. It was time to go. "You expect us to believe you were held captive for nearly a month, and the daughter of Emperor Valoris just let you go?" General Carla Herschel leaned forward across the debriefing table, skepticism etched in every line of her weathered face. Axel met her gaze steadily. 6 days had passed since his daring escape from Valoris Prime with Dominic and Kira. 6 days of intense debriefing, medical exams, and psychological evaluations. "The intelligence I've provided about the Imperial fleet movements has checked out, hasn't it?" he countered. Admiral Takeda nodded reluctantly. "Your warning about Vesper 3 saved millions. And the data on Valerian shield frequencies is unprecedented." "What they're not asking," said Colonel Reeves, the coalition's head of counterintelligence, "is why a Valerian royal would betray her own father. What did you give her in return, Captain?" The implied accusation hung in the air. Treason. Collaboration. The unspoken suggestion that he'd been turned, brainwashed, or worse. "Nothing that would compromise coalition security," Axel replied carefully. What had passed between him and Thelia was too complex, too personal to explain to these officers who saw the conflict in black and white. "We need to strike immediately," urged General Herschel. "With these shield frequencies, we could penetrate their homeworld defenses, hit their central command. End this war in one decisive blow." Axel's heart sank. An attack on Valoris Prime would mean thousands of civilian casualties. It would mean Thelia's death. "The frequencies I provided are for military vessels only. Planetary defenses operate on different principles." A partial lie. He had the planetary codes too, Thelia had given them to him, but he'd corrupted those portions of the data during transit. He couldn't be responsible for a genocide, even against an enemy. The meeting continued for hours, strategy and counterintelligence experts dissecting his every word. When finally dismissed, Axel retreated to his quarters, exhausted and conflicted. The face that greeted him in the mirror was haggard, eyes haunted by something more complex than combat fatigue. He activated his personal terminal, scrolling through coalition news channels. Reports of Valerian aggression, propaganda about alien brutality, calls for total victory. Nothing about diplomatic initiatives or peace overtures. A discreet chime alerted him to an encrypted message, routed through 17 relay stations to mask its origin. His pulse quickened as he decrypted it with the key Thelia had implanted in his neural link. Father suspects. Court in chaos. Primary fleet deploying to human colony Asteria. Arrival in 3 days. Secondary target, Earth. Cannot stop attack. Will try to delay. Be careful who you trust in your command. Axel read it 3 times before erasing all traces. Asteria, a resource-rich world with 8 million colonists. And after that, Earth itself. The final offensive Thelia had warned about was coming sooner than expected. He should report this immediately. It was his duty. But Thelia's warning about traitors in the command structure gave him pause. Who could he trust? And how could he present this intelligence without revealing its source? The following morning, he approached Admiral Takeda privately. The old spacer had lost family on Jupiter Station during the early years of the war but had never succumbed to blind hatred. Sir, I need to speak with you alone. No recording devices. The Admiral studied him for a long moment before disabling the room's surveillance. Proceed, Captain. Axel took a deep breath. I have reason to believe there's a Valerian sympathizer in high command, someone feeding them our defense protocols. Another lie, but one that would explain his caution. I also have intelligence about an imminent attack on Asteria. As he outlined what he knew, carefully omitting Thelia's role, the Admiral's expression grew grave. This aligns with intercepted communications we detected yesterday. I'll mobilize the Third Fleet immediately. Sir, Axel ventured, is there any possibility of opening diplomatic channels? Before this escalates further? Takeda's eyes narrowed. Advocating diplomacy with the Valorians, Captain? After what they've done to our colonies? I've seen their homeworld, sir. They're civilians. They're children. If we respond in kind, attack their population centers. Axel shook his head. We become what we're fighting against. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Prepare your tactical report on Asteria. Leave the strategy to those with a broader view. His tone softened slightly. The time for diplomacy ended when they destroyed New Sydney, Captain. Some wounds cannot be healed with words. Axel returned to his quarters, drafting the report while wrestling with his conscience. Every suggestion he made could save human lives or endanger Valerian ones, including Thelia's. For the first time in his military career, his loyalty was divided, his heart and duty at war with each other. That night, he recorded a message he knew might never reach its destination. I warned them about Asteria. They're preparing defenses. There will be casualties on both sides. I'm trying to find another way, but no one here wants peace. Not after so much blood. He paused. I miss you. And I'm afraid of what I'm becoming, a man with no home among his own people. The battle for Asteria burned across the system like a deadly constellation. Coalition forces had the advantage of preparation, but the Valerian fleet's superior firepower was turning the tide. From the bridge of the Coalition cruiser Defiant, Axel watched tactical displays with growing dread. Valerian dreadnought breaking through Sector 7, reported the tactical officer. They're deploying ground forces. Admiral Takeda turned to Axel. You know their tactics better than anyone, Captain. I'm sending you planetside with the counter-offensive. Within the hour, Axel's dropship plunged through Asteria's atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire lighting the sky around them. His strike team hit the ground running, engaging Valerian forces that had established a beachhead near the colony's main power facility. The battle was chaos, plasma fire and kinetic rounds tearing through the air, the scream of wounded from both sides. Axel led his squad through the labyrinth of colonial streets, pushing toward the Valerian command post. Incoming transmission on a restricted channel, his communications officer reported suddenly. Sir, it's coded specifically for you. Axel ducked behind a shattered wall, activating his neural link. Thelia's voice filled his mind, strained and urgent. The dreadnought Imperius is my father's flagship. He's commanding the ground assault personally, determined to make an example of this colony. I'm planetside, trying to reach the human civilian bunkers before his extermination units. Meet me at coordinates 42. 19 by 103. 45, come alone. There may be one last chance to stop this. Captain? His second-in-command looked at him questioningly. Orders? Axel made his decision in an instant. Maintain the assault on their eastern flank. I'm going to attempt infiltration of their command structure from the west. Radio silence until I make contact. Before anyone could object, he was moving, using the battle's confusion as cover. The coordinates led him to an abandoned research facility on the colony's outskirts. Every instinct screamed caution, but he pressed forward, weapon ready. He found Thelia in what had once been a laboratory, her royal armor scorched from combat. She wasn't alone. A group of human civilians, mostly children and elderly, huddled behind makeshift barricades. "You came," she said, visible relief in her silver eyes. "I wasn't certain you would." "What is this?" Axel gestured to the civilians. "I managed to evacuate them before my father's forces reached their shelter." Her expression hardened. "He's ordered no survivors, Axel. No prisoners. Total eradication." One of the children whimpered, and Thelia knelt, her translator conveying soothing words. The gesture, so at odds with everything Axel had been taught about Valorians, cemented what he already knew in his heart. "We need to get them to the evacuation point," he said. "There's a coalition transport 10 kilometers south that can." The wall exploded inward. When the dust cleared, Emperor Valoris himself stood framed in the breach, flanked by Imperial guards. Tall and terrible in battle armor that amplified his already imposing presence, he fixed his daughter with eyes like frozen mercury. "So the rumors were true," he said, his translator rendering his voice in flat, emotionless standard. "My daughter, royal blood of the Empire, consorting with humans. Betraying her species for some primitive fascination." Thelia stepped forward, placing herself between the Emperor and the civilians. "They are children, father. Non-combatants. This slaughter violates even our own ancient laws of warfare." "Laws apply to equals," the Emperor replied coldly. "These creatures are not our equals." His gaze shifted to Axel. "And this one, the mercenary who escaped our detention, he has turned you against your heritage." "No," Thelia countered, her voice strengthening. "He showed me that there are alternatives to endless war. That coexistence is possible." The Emperor's laugh was a terrible sound. "Coexistence? With a species that will breed and spread and consume until nothing remains for others? Their brief lives make them reckless, daughter. They cannot plan for centuries as we do." "Perhaps that's their strength," Thelia replied. "They cherish what they have because they know it's finite. They create beauty because they won't live to see the end of time. They love fiercely because tomorrow isn't guaranteed." Axel moved to stand beside her, their shoulders touching. "Your Majesty, this war has cost both our species too much already. We're proposing an alternative: joint colonies, shared resources, cultural exchange." "Blasphemy," the Emperor snarled. He raised his weapon. "I will end this corruption now." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The Emperor fired. Thelia pushed Axel aside, the energy blast catching her shoulder instead of his heart. Axel's return fire struck one of the Imperial guards as civilians screamed. And then, impossibly, other Valorians were there, younger officers who had served under Thelia, who had seen her vision for a different future. They moved to stand with her, weapons lowered but stances resolute. "Enough blood has been spilled, father," Thelia said, rising despite her wound. "Your own officers see it. This path leads to mutual destruction." The Emperor looked from his daughter to the dissenting officers, genuine shock breaking through his imperial composure. "You would all betray the Empire? For these humans?" "Not betrayal," Thelia corrected. "Evolution. Growth. The Empire can be more than conquest. We can build rather than destroy." For a long moment, the future balanced on a knife's edge. Then slowly, with tremendous reluctance, the Emperor lowered his weapon. "You will make your case before the Imperial Council," he said finally. "If they find merit in this coexistence, I will not stand against their judgment." His eyes locked with Axel's. "But understand this, human, if this experiment fails, if your kind proves treacherous, there will be no second chance." 3 days later, on the orbital station where peace talks had cautiously begun, Axel found Thelia watching the stars from an observation deck. The coalition representatives are skeptical, he told her. But they're listening. It's more than we could have hoped for. A beginning, she agreed, her hand finding his. Not an ending. And us? Axel asked softly. Where do we fit in this new galaxy we're trying to create? Thelia turned to him, the light of distant suns reflected in her silver eyes. We exist in the space between worlds, she said. Neither fully of my culture nor yours. Perhaps that's exactly where we need to be, the bridge between two futures. As their lips met, Axel knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, cultural differences, biological barriers, the weight of history, they would face them together, pioneers of a connection that transcended the boundaries of species. Their love, forbidden and impossible as it had seemed, might just save two civilizations from destruction.